I begin with a basic question about the mitzvah of Tkiyat Shofar. How many sounds do we blow on each day of Rosh Hashanah? How many sounds must we hear? The answer, as some of you may have correctly answered, is 100. But the question is, why so many sounds? After all, if we look in the Torah, in Sefer Bamidbar, Parsha Pinchas, the Torah says, Yom Teruah Yeh Lachem. Rosh Hashanah is a Yom Teruah, a day of Teruah, blowing the shofar. But that could be one sound. Blow one sound, and that should be enough. How do we get from 1 all the way to 100? That's what we are going to focus on in this video. We begin, as the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah explains, with the fact that the Torah uses the term Teruah 3 times in the context of the Chagim of the month of Tishrei. Teruah, Teruah, Teruah. So we learn from here that we need to blow 3 Teruot. A Teruah is some sort of broken staccato sound. But we also learn and derive from the Psukim that every time we blow a Teruah, it needs to be preceded and followed with a Tkiyah, with a long, unbroken sound. And therefore, our 3 Teruot turn into a total of 9 sounds. 3 sets of Tkiyah, Teruah, Tkiyah. Notice, it's a sandwich. Teruah in the middle, Tkiyah at the beginning, and a Tkiyah at the end. But the question is, what exactly is a Teruah? So the Gemara in Masechah Rosh Hashanah, Daf Lamed Gimel Amud Bet, addresses this question. And the Gemara says as follows, Yom Teruah Yeh Lachem, it should be a day of Teruah, of blowing a Teruah, Umitargiminan Yom Yevava Yehe Lachon. The Targum Onkelos, the Aramaic translation on the side of the Chumash, translates that phrase as Yom Yevava Yehe Lachon. It should be a day of Yevava for you. What does the word Yevava mean? So continues the Gemara, Uchtiv B'imei de Sisra, in the context of the mother of Sisra, when she's waiting for her son, Sisra, who's in battle against Am Yisrael, when she's waiting for him to return, we read, Be'al hachalon nishkefa vatiyabev im Sisra. By the window, she's peering out. Vatiyabev, and she is crying. What is Yevava? It's a cry. Rosh Hashanah is a day of crying for you. So we know from this Gemara and this translation of Onkelos that the word Teruah means a cry. It relates to, and it's supposed to approximate the sound of a human cry. But what kind of cry is it that we're trying to recreate? We know people cry in different ways. Some people cry, there's a moaning and a groaning, it's a slow cry. And for that, we blow a shvarim. Shvarim from the word shever, to be broken. It's a slow, broken sound. But some people weep, and they sob uncontrollably. And for that, we blow a Teruah, which is that fast staccato sound, as if somebody is just weeping. But there are other people who begin crying slowly, but that turns into a fast sob. And for that reason, we blow a shvarim and followed by a Teruah together in order to recreate that sound, that type of cry. We want to make sure that we are blowing the proper sound of the Teruah. So in order to do that, we cannot just blow 9 sounds, because that Teruah could either be a shvarim, it could be what we know as a Teruah, what we call a Teruah nowadays, but it could also be a shvarim and a Teruah. So in order to accommodate all the different varieties, we blow 3 sets with each type of Teruah. We begin Tkiyah, Shvarim, Teruah, Tkiyah 3 times. Perhaps Shvarim and Teruah is the proper sound of a Teruah. Then we blow Tkiyah, Shvarim, Tkiyah 3 times, because perhaps Shvarim is the proper Teruah sound. And then we blow a third a third round of 3 sets with tkiya, trua, tkiya, in case what we call a trua is the actual sound of the trua. In total, we blow 30 sounds, and by doing so, we have blown the 3 sets of tkiya, trua, tkiya, which is required by the Torah. Now, you'll notice sometimes in some sidurim, or sometimes people will talk in abbreviation. Instead of spelling it all out, tkiya, shvarim, trua, tkiya, it will just be written or spoken tashrat, which is an abbreviation, tkiya, shvarim, trua, tkiya. Or tashat, which is an abbreviation for tkiya, shvarim, tkiya. Or tarat, which is an abbreviation, tkiya, trua, tkiya. So that brings us to 30 sounds. But we're still not at 100. We double that number by blowing that entire set we described in the earlier slide twice. First, before the Amidah of Musaf, before the Shmona Esrei, and that's called the Tkiyot de Miyushav, the Tkiyot where we are Yoshev. Sfaradim actually sit for that set of Tkiyot, and Ashkenazim, technically they could sit, the minhag is to stand, but those are the set we blow before the Shmona Esrei. Then we blow that entire set of 30 again during the Amidah of Musaf, and that's called the Tkiyot Dim Me'umad, where we are Omed, we are standing. In some shuls, in Sephardic shuls, in Hasidic shuls, it's actually blown in the middle of the silent Shmona Esrei. In most Ashkenazi shuls, it's blown during Chazarat Hashatz, during the recitation by the Shliach Tzibur. The question is why? Why do we blow the entire set twice? Once before the Amidah of Musaf and once during the Amidah of Musaf. So to this, the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah and Daf Tet Zayin addresses this question, and you have it in front of you. It reads as follows: Lama tokin umuriyin kishein yoshvin, v'tokin umuriyin kishein omdim. Why do we blow a tkiya and a trua, that entire set, when we are sitting, and then we blow again when we're standing? Why twice? Answers the Gemara, kidei le'arbev hasatan, in order to confuse the satan. Now it's a little bit difficult to understand what exactly does that mean, that by blowing a second set that confuses the satan. I leave that for you to think about, and we will discuss this more in class as to what exactly this confusion for the satan is referring to. So we have learned that the mitzvah of Tkiyat Shofar, which may have appeared as if we only have to hear one sound, really requires us to hear 3 sounds of a trua, which then expands itself to 9 sounds in total, with a tkiya bracketing each trua, which practically results in a requirement to hear 30 sounds in order to ensure the proper sound of a trua, which at the end of the day is going to be doubled to 60 in order to confuse the satan. But how do we get that last leg, those final 40 sounds which bring us to 100? So for this, we have to go out into left field. In Sefer Shoftim, at the end of Perek Daled, we read about how the mother of Sisera is waiting for her son Sisera to return from battle. And the pasuk tells us, and we saw this pasuk earlier, Be'ara chalon nishkefa vatiabev eim Sisera. By the window she's peering out, anxiously waiting, yearning for her son to return, and she cries. And there's a tradition that she cried 100 times at that moment. And in order to correspond to and mirror those cries of the mother of Sisera, we blow an extra 40 sounds in order to reach a total of 100. And the question I leave for you to think about is, why in the world, on Rosh Hashanah, are we trying to imitate the mother of Sisera? There are so many mothers and women in Am Yisrael who cried, Rachel mevakal paneha. Rachel cries, Chana cries, all the imahot cried. Why are we trying to correspond to and mirror the cries of the mother of Sisera? I leave that for you to think about. Okay, Baruch Hashem, we have arrived at our destination. We have learned how the mitzvah of Tkiyat Shofar, which may seem as only requiring one sound, in fact, according to the Torah, requires that we hear 9 sounds. In order to make sure that we get that middle sound of the Trua correct, we blow 30 sounds. To confuse the Satan, we double that, and we blow 60. And finally, in order to correspond to the cries of the mother of Sisera, we add 40, which brings us to a grand total of 100 sounds of the shofar each day of Rosh Hashanah.